Is the electric F-150 Lightning better than the gas version of the F-150? Well, yeah, I could think of at least 5 reasons why it's better than the gas version, but, well, there's probably a couple reasons why it's maybe not as good. That's true. And then there's a few reasons why it really doesn't matter. They're both the same in terms of which is better. So overall, let's take a look at the F-150 Lightning. Is it really better than the F-150 gas model? I think first and foremost, the thing that to me is the greatest difference, or one of the best advantages that this F-150 Lightning has, is the drive. An electric powertrain in general is a much more linear drive. I mean, there's no gears, of course, so what you have is a different experience. There's no torque lag. When you have a powertrain such as this, with the 2 different battery sizes, if you have the standard range battery pack, you have an output of 452 horsepower and an incredible 775 pound-feet of torque. If you go for the extended range, which is the larger battery and dual motor, you have 580 horsepower and also an equivalent 775 pound-feet of torque. And that's all immediate. And of course, the sidebar to that, as I mentioned, is the power. You know, even the hybrid 3.5 liter hybrid F-150 does not have the same overall horsepower and torque as does this Lightning. So if you're really someone who likes power and responsive power, well, you know, the drive and the power you get with the drive is definitely an advantage with this F-150 Lightning. Another advantage I feel this F-150 Lightning has, I just call it stability. You see, the batteries in this F-150 Lightning, the way they are placed below the passenger compartments. They are low, they're not in the back. What you have is an incredibly balanced vehicle. The weight distribution between front and back is literally almost 50-50. I mean, it's not to the pound, but it's pretty darn close. Whereas with a regular gas-powered truck, I mean, you have a lot of weight up front with the big engines, and because the weight is low, and this is a heavier vehicle than the regular gas version, it's very planted, especially in winter conditions. I've often said with other electric vehicles, even if you only have, say, a 2-wheel drive system, because of the weight, because of the placement of the batteries, it almost negates the advantage of having all-wheel drive, because, you know, with only single motors and 2-wheel drive, you have maybe less power and output, but greater efficiency and range. So there's a give and take there. Now, I have something that I consider to be an advantage with the Lightning that admittedly some may not agree with me on, is what I call stealth mode. An electric vehicle does not have exhaust note. I know for some of the truck fans, there's a real love for the exhaust note sounds that come, you know, from a high-powered, high engine, the V8s, or the guttural exhaust notes. But that's not always something that people love. And I remember having a chat with one guy a couple of years ago, and he told me how, you know, the electric vehicles are all bogus. And I asked him this one question. I said, do you ever go out with your friends and maybe come home late or later than you should, and then your girlfriend or your wife, whoever it was, gets mad at you? And he says, yeah, it happens all the time. And I says, well, the reason why is because when you pull up on your big block engine, she hears you pulling in. But dude, with an electric vehicle, it's stealth. She won't hear you. So all of a sudden you just sneak in, fall asleep on the couch and say, honey, I didn't want to bother you. He's there, bro. So for some people, stealth is not a bad thing. Because of the way that this vehicle is powered with batteries and not an engine, we have all kinds of additional cargo space under the hood, and the Frunk, to me, is another huge advantage why I like the Lightning better than the gas. I mean, there's about 14 cubic feet of space under the hood that is available for you to put your groceries in or a few bags. And, you know, and it's a big advantage, especially in winter. If you don't want to put all your stuff in the back of the bed, and, you know, if you don't have a tonneau cover, it's a disadvantage. And not only that, you have outputs, power outputs there, so you can run lights or tools. There's even a drain plug if you want to do some tailgating, stick in some ice, do a little partying. not everything about the Lightning is better than the gas. There still are some areas where I think the traditional F-150 has an advantage. And the number one, which other people have talked about too, is with towing ability. The F-150 Lightning does have the ability to tow. The standard range battery can tow up to 7,700 pounds and 10,000 pounds for the extended range, but that's down to 8,500 pounds with the Platinum, again, because of the higher weight. The peak towing capacity with the current F-150 gas, with the XLT hybrid, you've got 12,400 pounds. So obviously overall towing limits is better, but also, as we know, there is still a lot of talk about how much towing impedes the range of this electric, especially if you max out the weight or if you're driving in cooler conditions. These are technical challenges that engineers will overcome over time, but if you really are someone who tows a lot, right now I think the gas F-150 still has the edge over this one. Another disadvantage, this is a heavier vehicle. Now, I mean, you could argue, well, so long as you have the power and the options, weight shouldn't matter as much. But you know what? Heavy vehicles do have a negative impact. When we're talking about, impact on roads, on just your general infrastructure, about your tires and wheels, the heavier a vehicle is, it does pose some disadvantages. That's a technological engineering challenge, but I know there was a lot being done to work on improvements of efficiency, capacity, and mass. So, over time we'll probably see that change, but right now the added weight, that's a lot, and that's definitely a disadvantage. But there are some things that are the same. There are some things that don't change whether you're in gas or electric. They intentionally designed this Lightning to look, to feel, to operate, to have the same interior by and large as the regular gas F-150. There's some small changes. Of course, the center screen is the large touchpad type screen that was brought in to the Mach-E, but so that's different, and it has different purposes. There's different, obviously, measurements and readouts you have to keep an eye on. But otherwise, I mean, this looks and feels. I've had a couple of F-150 drivers get in with me this week and they say, yep, it's a truck. Another thing that's the same, they're both big users of energy. Trucks are gas guzzlers, let's be honest. They're large, they have big displacements, they have reasons for towing a lot of weight, so they take up a lot of fuel. And this F-150 Lightning is also a big user of energy. It's a heavier vehicle, so you need a lot of energy. This is not efficient. This is probably, in terms of energy consumption, about 2 to 3 times less efficient than the most efficient EV on the market. If the goal of Ford was to build an F-150 that does everything a gas does, but an electric, to convince those F-150 users they can't switch, well, they've done a great job. This does that. It is an F-150, just with an electric powertrain, and there's some advantages to that. There's several and a couple of disadvantages. So in that regard, well done, Ford. I guess the bigger question, though, is does this actually help move us towards a more sustainable and prosperous future? I mean, does this really help in the end? And that's where I'm a little bit torn, because we can argue that this is an electric F-150 truck and it does a good job at that, but do we need electric trucks this size to begin with? Or do we need them in such abundance? I do think that this is an important step. We have to have these trucks to convince those that we can move from gas to electric. But at some point, we're going to have that next discussion, is do we really have to have vehicles this large to begin with, or as many of them? That's for another discussion, though, and it's one I'd be happy to have. But for now, we'll leave it at this. Well done, Ford. This F-150 is a great vehicle for what it is, and I enjoy driving it. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And if you are subscribed, don't forget to ring the bell so that you're notified of every time I upload something new. That's it for now. I'm Novak. Thanks for watching.